Dan and Corey here, welcoming you into Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
Yeah, welcome in.
Oh, welcome in.
What
We started at the right time, Dan.
What a time to start a show, Corey Walsh, as the second round of the Twitter files is being released as we speak. By the Queen Bee, Bari Weiss. We're going to be going through those live as the show goes through. It's probably going to be, as Shane Murphy said, in reply to one of the first two tweets from Bari, is this going to be like Taibbi's thread with one tweet posted every 5 minutes for 30 plus tweets? My guess would probably be, yeah, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. So that's obviously the big story of the day. If we get to any of this other stuff, Corey, I'll set up the other stuff we plan on talking about tonight. Basically how Russia and Ukraine has turned into toddlers fighting in a sandbox with nukes. The Supreme Court, not just the Supreme Court, but the courts in general, back in the news for big reasons. That's probably going to cover our entire show. But other than Joe Biden making the worst trade since the Vikings traded for Herschel Walker, what else is new, Corey Walsh?
Not much. It seems like almost everything that we had planned today is like ripped off the table. I'm over here looking at these tweets that are popping up as we're trying to get this show started. I've just finishing up this semester of school. Been still diving deep into Mad Men, trying to finish that show up, and playing a shit ton of DMZ on Warzone 2. I've already put in an embarrassing amount of hours into that game. And watched Michigan win back-to-back Big Ten champs.
Yeah, go Blue.
Saturday. Other than that, I got some Russell's Reserve here, some 10-year-old bourbon. I got some Pigeon Hill salted caramel porter. I'm ready to watch the shit show live, Dan.
This is gonna be fun. This might be a long one. Yeah, I'm just drinking basically the dirtiest of martinis. If I have to skip out mid-show.
So dirty. Before we hopped on the air, he was like spitting in it and stuff and like backwashing it and doing a bunch of weird stuff. I didn't even know what exactly.
I did release a solid round of diarrhea. I do have the squirts. I'm going to let the people know.
It's in that cup.
That's
why
say,
it's a dirty martini.
As they say in the heartland, the runs. You like to put it. I don't know what it is. It might have been the Vietnamese pho I had earlier today. I know that's racist. Why would you say the Asian food gave you diarrhea, Dan?
Because it's the only fucking thing he ate. You're the one making it racist, right?
Oh man,
we were eating bats from Wuhan.
No, it's actually delicious. A little place on the road called Little Saigon. Of course, it's called Little Saigon, right?
You just dropped a little Saigon in the toilet, huh?
Oh man, so
the puns.
The big news, and honestly, this happened like right after we did last week's show. It seems like that's when these things happen. So I'm glad we're live as Bari's tweeting round 2 here. The Twitter files. I didn't want to be interested in this story, and the reason I didn't want to be interested in this is because it's like weirdly a nothing burger, but also like super important at the same time, if that makes sense. And I think the reason we're calling it. Here we go. The journalism's most important nothing burger is because Matt Taibbi's first round of tweets regarding Twitter's handling of the Hunter Biden story, which is essentially what this is all about, and basically the downgrading of it and basically making sure it's not disseminated too far on Twitter. There was only so much they could do, but they did try to silence this story. We already knew this. Like, this isn't nothing Matt Taibbi tweeted in that first round of Twitter files tweets was really anything new. It was all, but the reason it was important is because we actually got to see the correspondence from these higher ups at Twitter regarding this.
Yeah, it's finally some confirmation. Do you think it's a vindication for the crazies on the right wearing tinfoil hats? In a sense?
No, I don't. And the reason for that is because you can still see who these people are with regards to the way that they respond to and talk about the Twitter files. It's automatically become like this weird legality issue where like somebody's got to be thrown in prison for this. Somebody has to. And it's like, no, chill the fuck out. Based on what we know so far, Twitter doesn't appear to have committed any crimes. Okay. What they did was remarkably unethical. And you still have the people touting the free speech shit, which has been ridiculous up until this point. I'm going to give the free speech, this free speech censorship people a little bit of credit now, simply because we have a little bit of confirmation that Twitter was in cahoots with possibly the Democratic Party, but certainly the FBI. I'm hoping more comes out about the correspondence with the FBI, and we'll get into why maybe that hasn't happened yet. A gentleman named Jim Baker may have a little bit to do with that. But so far, based on what we've seen, I hesitate to think that, and this is me playing devil's advocate. Weirdly, Corey, you're probably going to want to throw up for what I'm about to say. I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate for the FBI here, just for a second. I don't necessarily believe this. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Okay, everybody, calm the fuck down.
I'm calm.
So,
Corey's not.
The story goes so far that the FBI reached out to not only Twitter but other social media companies prior to the release of the Hunter Biden laptop story. And basically said, hey, look out. There might be some Russian disinformation coming, right? They didn't specifically mention the Hunter Biden laptop story, so at least that we've seen so far. And so I look at that and I go, is that clear-cut evidence of collusion with the FBI? Or is that Twitter being super duper lefty and seeing this story come through and going, this must be what that FBI guy was talking about. This must be that Russian collusion and their bias. Because like, I'm always a proponent of never chalking anything up to malfeasance that can be credited to stupidity and incompetence. And so
that's what qualified immunity is for, Dan.
So it's like, what is it at this point? I don't think we know that much.
When you go through the tweets,
we're gonna know.
When you go through the tweets, you see them like in one of them. It's mentioned they don't want 2016 to happen again, and it just seemed. And then like on top of that, you've seen them with references to Section 230, which is basically what is Section 230? I can't think of the exact words verbatim, but it was an outlet on the internet can't be held responsible for something that was published. That if someone shares it on their page, they can't be held liable. Mm-hmm. Trump wanted to get rid of that, if you remember. And so when all of this was happening, Section 230 was a hot button topic. 2016, it was, the drops of them talking about investigating Hillary Clinton definitely put a damper on her campaign. And so they wanted to try to avoid that again. But I think, honestly, my personal opinion on that is bullshit. Campaign elections coincide with real life. They're not in its own bubble. If something happens when a campaign is being run and something is brought to light, the people deserve to know. And Twitter, it's very clear in the different emails and stuff that were leaked that Twitter was suppressing that information. Now, the reason why it's not illegal and not suppression of, or the reason why it's not illegal and the reason why it's not technically a suppression of free speech is Twitter didn't take down New York Post article. they just suppress it on their personal private platform. And you could say that their suppression brought the story more to light, that more people like heard about it and stuff. Now,
It
my
was
issue,
it was Streisand affected. Streisand.
yeah,
affected
it was, yeah, the
here.
Barbra Streisand effect. Now, my issue with that is the way that they did that. It only gave, you know, the tinfoil hat people more credence to think there's a bigger conspiracy happening, and because of the silence, then there was no discussion of it on the public platform or in the proverbial town square. It just gave them all of these legs to run with about crazy conspiracy theories about it, when in all reality, if it was actually brought out and people could discuss it, it might not have been where it is now, to where we might actually be able to learn about corruption and stuff. And instead, we're all talking about Hunter Biden's dick. You know, and honestly, I think that's what the Democrats wanted. They didn't want people talking about this. They wanted people talking about crack pipes in Hunter Biden's mouth.
Yeah. Yeah, this is it's interesting because you look at just the reaction to this, and I look at like like this
Like
is
Robbie said, he likes what Matt Taibbi's doing, but not how he's doing it with all the time in for the 2 days, 2-second release BS.
well,
Which I think, you know, like me and Dan were talking about this too. I think that like Matt Taibbi got the scoop, and I'm sure one of the stipulations from Elon was you have to release it on Twitter, because we're talking about two people that have very successful Substacks where they could have released this. Oh, Elon. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I guess it sounds like we're kind of on the same page, that it sounds like Elon wanted it released like this on his page. But you know, it's kind of a smart business move. Imagine like the amount of people going to Twitter now to see this shit. It's a big PR stunt, sure. And it's garnering a lot of attention. But it would have been nice to see this actually written out in a thoughtful way versus a bunch of 240 character tweets.
I mean, I'm sure it will be after the fact. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, Elon owns the platform. Part of the stipulation was probably, hey, I'll give you guys this this scoop, but you have to release it on Twitter first. So I'm sure we'll see some nice, well thought out written pieces by both Matt and Bari. They're fantastic journalists.
I have complete faith in their writing abilities.
Unless you ask people.
That's fair. He says if you care about corruption, it doesn't need to be a show release. It doesn't need to be a show release at all. Not
just to play devil's advocate for Elon here. I mean, the guy's a billionaire. You're not a billionaire. You don't buy Twitter and try to go to Mars unless you're a fucking narcissist. I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just par for the course. You can still care about corruption and also be a narcissist and want it released on your platform to start with. Any chance to make a dime, I guess. But like the reaction to this whole thing has been like the perfect example to me of legitimate both sidesism, right? When you think about the right, like somebody needs to be prosecuted for this and free speech this and free speech that. Meanwhile, they're also sitting there saying that a baker doesn't have to bake a cake for a gay couple or whatever. And
that's
then
actually a topic I don't even know if we'll get to now that I wanted to talk about it kind of in detail.
Right. And then you have people on the left that literally it's just all ad hom arguments towards Matt Taibbi and Bari Weiss, and going like not even giving examples, but just trying to diminish their credibility as journalists, even though in my view, Bari Weiss and Matt Taibbi are probably two of maybe the top 5 journalists in the world right now based on what they actually publish. And it's all just attacking them and not what, well, Taibbi to this point, because Bari hasn't given, her entire scoop yet, but I'm sure they'll go after her next. But it's just this attack on Taibbi and nothing to do with what he actually published.
Right. Matt Taibbi is doing PR work for the world's richest man.
So it's like you have
there were so many tweets that basically said the same thing.
What was that?
There was so many tweets that said like basically just that. Matt Taibbi is doing PR work for the world's richest man. What a fall from grace. This guy used to be a Rolling Stones journalist.
He's not Kanye. Jeez.
I know.
Now, when Matt Taibbi scoops up Nick Fuentes and goes on Alex Jones's show, then we
Wears
know
a gimp suit.
he's taking a big fall at that point.
Right.
Um,
But yeah, no, it's interesting. It does prove that there is a slant in the tech industries and things like that and it's interesting to me how they're just in such of a little bubble of their own. What's up, Skizzo? They're in such a little bubble of their own that they didn't even take into account like the what's it called? The Bill of Rights and stuff. Like, for example, I'm looking at number 36.
did you just say what's it called? The Bill of Rights and stuff?
Yeah, what's it called? That Bill and Rights and stuff. Ro Khanna was like freaking out about this, going like, yo, like I'm more concerned about the Bill of Rights. And they're like, well, then I forget what they said exactly in the emails, whatever. They were more concerned about their what's it called? Their terms of services, not the Bill of Rights. Like the Democrats, meanwhile, this is from number 36 of the Twitter files. The Democrats, meanwhile, complain that the companies are inept. They let conservatives muddy the water and make the Biden campaign look corrupt, even though Biden is innocent. They linked this to Hillary Clinton's email scandal. She did nothing wrong, but because the press wouldn't let the story go, it became a scandal far out of proportion. In their minds, social media is doing the same thing. It doesn't moderate enough harmful content, so when it does, like it did yesterday, it becomes a story. If the companies moderated more, conservatives wouldn't even think to use social media for disinformation, misinformation, or otherwise. The Democrats were in agreement. Social media needs to moderate more because they're corrupting democracy and making all truth relative. When pushed on how the government might insist on that, consistent with the First Amendment, they demurred. The First Amendment isn't absolute.
But see, that right there is the bullshit that everybody sees through. Right? If they moderate more, then conservatives won't be able to spread disinformation. What about liberals spreading disinformation? What about all the COVID nonsense? What about all the vaccine mandates and all that garbage? Like clear dis and misinformation. The only difference here in the quote unquote dis and misinformation is the fact that liberals have this cultural stranglehold on society and media. Like that's literally the only difference. Like they're both spewing bullshit. Both sides are spewing bullshit, but the conservative angle doesn't get heard. Well, it does. I mean, you really don't have to look for it that hard. Just go to
it's not like there's silence. You just have to like, it's the influence isn't there as much as leftist media. For example, like when you want to use a perfect example of misinformation, Dan, is look at the morality police in Iran. All the stories are running with this idea that Iran's protests had a conclusion where the morality police was dismantled, when that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
But now you got people in America thinking that the morality police in Iran were dismantled. And like I said to you before we started the show, Americans have the attention span of a goldfish, to where they hear that the morality police were dismantled. They go, oh, well, thank God that chapter's over. They close the book and then they move on to the next thing. And now you're not even going to hear about Iran anymore because everyone's going to think that, oh, they fixed their problem. Thank God. Let's get on to the next.
Well,
when that's not the case at all.
Yeah, that's actual, like, concrete misinformation that
coming from the left. Like that's leftist establishment media that was reporting that.
I mean, that's honestly probably a bipartisan misinformation. I don't think conservatives would disagree with that, with wanting to dismantle the morality police in Iran. But it's this place we've reached where opinions are misinformation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when Twitter goes and they take people like Peter McCullough and Dr. Malone off Twitter for giving their opinions on the reality of mRNA vaccine, educated opinions, by the way, that's misinformation. And when you listen to either of those guys in their multitude of podcast interviews, you can hear them and hear the fact that it's an educated opinion that they're giving. But that's right. A dangerous opinion. So it's
opinions that appear to now actually hold weight.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. And yeah, why is it that when someone like that gives their opinion and like the timing is too early, you know, it's like still like wet behind the ears, it's considered misinformation. And now you have Fauci actually coming out. He was in his deposition the other day and he was like, well, maybe the vaccine or the virus did come from a Wuhan lab. We didn't want to say that because the tensions with China were high.
Well, they'll never go back and say they were wrong. They'll have some moron, no, I shouldn't say moron, but some elitist from an Ivy League university write an article for The Atlantic asking for amnesty. That's what they'll do. That's not the same as an apology. That's not the same as admitting you were wrong. Is it? I mean,
no.
They'll never do that. They can't.
It's like when your dad abuses you and then instead of saying sorry, he goes and buys you ice cream after.
Why do you make me hit you? Yeah, that kind of thing. I mean,
here's some ice cream.
That's
Don't
exactly
tell your mom.
That's exactly what it is. Now, at the end of the day, as much as I think that what Twitter did was unbelievably unethical, I think you would agree.
Yeah.
We have to stop acting like we know that there was a crime committed here, because I know I heard Ted Cruz talking about, you know, the idea that there might be some legality issues with the FBI colluding with Twitter. But I mean, the way I think that's going to be really, really hard to prosecute, right? Because you look at it and you go, okay, if the FBI goes to Twitter and all we know so far is that they just warned them of possible Russian.
Well, damn, the FBI worked for Twitter.
We'll get there. But all we know so far is that the FBI went to Twitter and said, oh, there might be this possible Russian disinformation coming through. But even if they went to the point where it was like, yeah, we really want you guys to suppress this stuff, even if that's what was said, even if the Democratic Party went to Twitter and said, yeah, we really want you guys to suppress this stuff, Twitter can choose to suppress it or not suppress it. Now, obviously, being as lefty as they are,
it's a legal loophole.
Yeah, and so it's remarkably unethical and it's fucking wrong. And that is why I'm glad that Taibbi and Bari Weiss are releasing this information, because it's something that the American public deserves to see. And, you know, if you've been paying any bit of attention over the last, you know, whatever it is, year or so, you already knew about most of this stuff, but it's nice to have it put out and concrete. I hope it's actually like out in written form at some point, like you said earlier, but it's and you know that it has to be something that the American people need to know because of what we talked about 5 minutes ago, Corey. Anybody who's pissed off about it is only attacking the speakers. All they're doing is attacking ad hom attacks on Elon, Matt Taibbi, now Bari Weiss. It's like, do you not understand that is a dead giveaway that all this stuff is true? And we were in a good majority of us were right from the start.
Yeah, that's what I meant, I guess, when I mentioned earlier, like a vindication. Like, this just proves that, like, oh, hey, you know, like, we were all saying that these, that there's a huge, like, liberal slant in all of these tech companies. And this only proves it. What was I going to say? Oh, but like, the legal loophole I mentioned a second ago, like, it's equivalent to, like, a prosecutor that has an informant. A prosecutor has to get a warrant and go through like all the proper channels in the courts, you know, to go and bust in someone's house because they're protected by the Fourth Amendment, even if they're even if they're a criminal, they're still protected by the Fourth Amendment. But if a prosecutor has an informant on the inside and he goes, well, you know, if you find some of those documents in the house and you take them and they end up with us, then hey, they let you in their house. You just happen to steal from them. Then we can use that in court. That's a loophole. Is it ethical? No. Even if it's a criminal, you're trampling on their constitutional rights. And you could go back and listen to some of our other episodes, how we talked about how informants is a huge racketeering industry done by the 3-letter alphabet departments. But what they did wasn't necessarily illegal.
Well, and that's
but it's still but just because that is still so important that it's being brought to light.
Well, and that's the thing that makes me cringe about people on the right with regards to this story and stories like it. It's like, well, you know, they influenced the election. And I want to say it was actually Catherine Manke Ward who made this argument on the Reason Roundtable this week. She said, yeah, that's what we do here.
Yeah.
We influence elections. Like everybody's influencing an election or trying to influence an election one way or another. Even foreign entities, although we would hope that
Right.
doesn't happen. It does. And that's just,
Herschel Walker's abortion fiasco wasn't suppressed because it might influence an election.
right. It was
The
pushed
steel
harder because it might influence the election.
right. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like it's the double talk, I guess, for a lack of a better term. I'm trying to think about the double standard is what frustrates me with all of it.
It's where it's convenient for your team versus where it's not.
Right.
And that's the part that like you and I are both sick of. I'm honestly tired of how much control Democrats have over media and culture. I don't like it. Now, does that mean that I want Republicans to have control over media and culture? No, I don't want that either.
I want it objective.
I would like it to be a lot more even, at least in some way, shape, or form. I don't want conservatives' ideas being suppressed, even though I don't agree with many of them.
Right. And it just
know what they are. I would like to hear a story about Hunter Biden's laptop, even though, and that was the other big thing, right? Corey's like, well, if this story had gotten out on Twitter, Trump would have won the election. It's like,
maybe not. He was such a volatile figure that I don't think people cared.
It's like I cannot imagine a scenario where if the Hunter Biden laptop story, however true or false or whatever it ended up being at the time, now we know it's pretty true. I just don't see that affecting because this was an election, and I think 2016 was very similar. This was an election where where everybody in America who went to the polls to vote for either Joe Biden or Donald Trump, very few people were voting for the candidate that they ended up checking off on that fucking.
They were voting against the other.
They were voting against the other guy. So anybody who was voting for, I was one of those people. I held my nose and voted for Joe Biden, not because I liked Joe Biden.
I'm so glad I can say I didn't do that.
Look, I'm not, happy with myself over.
I'm not mad. I'm disappointed, Dan.
I really wish.
But before we started our show,
not checked. So, I really wish I had just not checked the box.
My scope of influence wasn't on you yet.
You're turning me. You're turning.
The nihilistic. Fuck this.
But you know what I mean? Like it doesn't. I don't think it matters how prevalent the Hunter Biden laptop story was. I just don't think it was going to affect the election because this was an election of fucking hate on both sides of the equation. I just can't see a scenario where that was going to be the case.
Yeah, no, I just think it's ultimately what it comes down to, and this is what always fucking frustrates me about all of this censorship and this shadow banning and stuff. And it just drives me to my core. Not the idea itself, but the premise behind it of, well, the collective is too dumb to be able to decipher this information and make informed decisions on their own. So we're going to do it for them.
Well, don't you think that kind of applies to like the Kanye situation, right? It's like, he's the newest. How can you give him a platform? How can you give him? I'm sorry. Like, I want to know what fucking dumbass anti-Semitic bullshit Kanye has to spew.
Yeah. And you know what? It's great because because you see how many, like, we now know the Republican Party isn't Nazis or racist because when an actual Nazi comes out, they're all in lockstep going, yeah, no, that guy's fucking insane. We want nothing to do with him.
To the point where he has to go on like
Alex Jones,
conservative grifter Tim Pool, and what would you call Alex Jones? A conspiracy theory grifter Alex Jones. That amount of fall from grace is because,
and they both disagreed with him.
They did. They did. It's so weird because it's one of those situations where it's like, why did you have him on? It's not that I don't think they shouldn't be able to have him on, as I've said multiple times. You want to have him on, but it's like, dude, why? You know why?
For the show, for the clicks, yeah.
The clicks. Like, don't pretend. Oh, Tim Pool drives me nuts with that shit.
And
like,
don't also pretend that if Kanye West hit us up and asked to be on our show, because we're like the only thing left, we wouldn't have him on.
I am so glad you said that because I was actually thinking that before we started the show while I was thinking about that point that I just made. Was like, what would we do if Kanye called us? Oh, I guess we're grifters too because we totally fucking have him on.
We'd have him on. We'd be calling him an idiot. Like, he would only last 5 minutes. I wouldn't hold back. He would last 5 minutes. He would walk out.
Well, that and plus, here's the difference between us and them, Corey, is that we just sat here and admitted we'd grift off of Kanye West if we had the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, they're like, it's not grifting. We're just giving him his right.
Want to give him a chance to speak. I think Lex Friedman was really the only one that like really wasn't, because I don't consider Lex a grifter. It was like, because he was one of the first ones where it was like, is this really what he thinks? Let's talk to him and find out. But then like after that, and then
maybe if Tucker Carlson didn't edit out all his craziness from his speech and then comes out and goes, he seems like a pretty reasonable guy. After I edited out 3 hours of a 40-minute interview.
Oh God! Just when you think Tucker is doing well, he goes and pulls a stunt like that.
Right.
So the only thing we really haven't gotten to, besides what is coming through from Bari Weiss at the moment, is the Jim Baker situation.
Right.
So Jim Baker, the former FBI, what was his position there? He was an attorney for the FBI somewhere in. I had it written down, but I forgot. It doesn't matter. Either way, motherfucker worked for the FBI and then took a job at Twitter in, what was it, January of 2021? I believe somewhere. It doesn't really matter. The timeline doesn't really matter. The point is, he used to work for the FBI. Now he doesn't work for Twitter, but as of about a week and a half ago, he still worked for Twitter. And Elon is claiming, I don't think we really have corroboration fully on this yet, but Elon is claiming that Jim Baker vetted all of the Twitter files before they were sent to Matt Taibbi, which at the very least makes you question, like, how did Matt Taibbi not find any correspondence like related to the FBI anywhere in those emails? At least not that I saw. And I went through them pretty thoroughly. Did you see anything that I missed? I don't know.
About Jim Baker being involved?
No, just about like some of the actual snippets of emails that Taibbi posted. I didn't see any reference to the FBI. Did you? I mean, like direct reference to the FBI?
No, there was Ro Khanna was reaching out, and he was actually one saying, "Hey, this might be a direct attack on freedom of speech, and this is gonna, they were talking about how this is gonna be really bad." Mm-hmm. And it looked like just nobody knew what to do, and they were all scrambling because they contorted themselves in this box. And then this story came along. But I didn't see any direct references to the FBI until afterwards when they realized who Jim Baker was.
Right. And it's like, that's to me to this point, and maybe what Bari Weiss puts out will explain it a little bit more. But to me, that's just interesting at this point. I don't think it really proves anything just yet. I mean, it's really suspicious, right?
That's suspicious.
That a guy that recently had worked for the FBI
he was involved in the Steele dossier and Russiagate.
Right. So, yeah, I get it. And then Elon subsequently fired him. So
when he found out who he was, he was exited from Twitter
a few days ago. Vetting the Twitter files.
Should we start reading these Bari Weiss tweets?
Hold on, let me refresh here because I think she's released 7 at this point. So all right, sure. And we're reading these live. We're getting them as we're reading them. So
as you're getting them, yeah. Oh, I can't. So, I tried to go full screen, and then I'm like, oh wait, I can't scroll on the Twitter when I do that.
That's right. I got the
new Twitter files investigation reveals that teams of Twitter employees build blacklists, prevent disfavored tweets from trending, and actively limit the visibility of entire accounts or even trending topics, all in secret without informing users. So I think that's the part that everyone's kind of freaking out about, is all in secret without informing users. Like the algorithms are hidden. No one really knows what's going to get put in a shadow ban and what isn't. Twitter once had a mission to give everyone the power to create and share ideas and information instantly without barriers. Along the way, barriers nevertheless were erected. Take, for example, Stanford's Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, who argued that COVID lockdowns would harm children. Twitter secretly placed him on a trends blacklist, which prevented his tweets from trending. Or consider the popular right-wing talk show host Dan Bongino, who at one point was slapped with a search blacklist.
Oh, Dan Bongino. Ugh.
Right. What? And so this picture right here. So verified, active, notification spike, search blacklist, Twitter blue verified, multiple accounts, strike count 0, NSFW view, SPMA. So every account has all these different little tags on them. And why does it say public enemy number 1?
Where does it say that?
Right there. See that? See where my fucking...
Oh, yeah, I do see it. Okay, here we go. Public enemy number 1 joined January 2011. I got you. Okay, interesting.
Twitter set the account of conservative activist Charlie Kirk to do not amplify, which would say right there, do not amplify. So they so it's interesting. They have this whole little bio of every profile.
Yeah, recent abuse spike. Like, what the hell does that even mean?
I don't know. Twitter denied that it does such things. In 2018, Twitter's Vijay Gaddy, then head of legal policy and trust, and Kayvon Bakpour, head of... I'm butchering these names.
They're tough names.
We do not shadow ban, they added, and we certainly don't shadow ban based on political viewpoints or ideology. So that's the problem that I have the issue with, is they straight up lied about it.
Well, here's what's interesting. Here's what's interesting, because, okay, if we go back up and we look at the pictures, so Dan Bongino, search blacklist, Charlie Kirk, do not amplify. What was the other one?
What's the strike count?
The doctor, recent abuses strike. So when Twitter says we do not shadow ban,
that's do not amplify. You're doing that.
But that's it, right. But that's not how these people see it. They see it as, we don't shadow ban anyone. Where on there does it say we shadow ban anyone? Like, it's all about language, when in reality, we know what we like.
Like potato.
Fucking semantics, dude. That's what it, and but they don't see it that way. That's the thing. Or at least that's what I'm gathering.
That's the thing, is like, yeah, they were lying about it.
So Bari goes on to say,
what many people call shadow banning, Twitter executives and employees call visibly filtering, or VF. Multiple high-level sources confirmed its meaning. That's literally what you just said, the semantics. Think about visibly filtering as being a way for us to suppress what people see to different levels. It's a very powerful tool, one senior Twitter employee told us. VF refers to Twitter's control over user visibility. It used VF to block searches of individual users, to limit the scope of a particular tweet's discoverability, to block select users' posts from ever appearing on the trending page, and from inclusion in hashtag searches, all without users' knowledge.
So here's what's so infuriating about this. Again, nothing about this is illegal, but the argument is that if Twitter's supposed to be the public town square, this is at best remarkably unethical what they're doing. Yep. Now, again, I don't like when people come out and go, it's a free speech violation. It's a free speech violation. This is the same people, because this is the same people that will sit there and go, that will sit there and try to revoke free speech in other areas. So I don't like when people bring up the free speech aspect of it, because it's a private company. I like how people use that on the left and the right when it's convenient for their narrative.
Yeah, and when when it goes against what they believe, they're like, "Oh my fucking god!"
But okay, first of all, it's not. At least at the time, it wasn't a private company. It was a publicly traded company. But the legality of that is still the same. Like, they can still make the decision to do what they did as far as quote unquote shadow banning. However, it's unethical and really disgusting to deny that you're doing it.
Right.
And then continuing to do it after you've already been caught.
Brandon just said, I think this is how Robbie said doesn't like how he's doing. He goes, people pay more attention when you create a spectacle. No one cares when you just drop information, like when they dropped the Kennedy files. And he has a point. Like, it's like you almost got to make a spectacle out of shit for people to even pay attention to it. If this was just some article on Matt Taibbi's Substack, no one would even see it. It would have been just like, as evidenced by this clearly that it happens by these Twitter files, it would have just been suppressed.
No, I mean, the people that would have seen it would be the people that know that Matt Taibbi is a fantastic journalist.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been the people. Yeah.
You and I would have seen it. All the people in the reasonable human being non-culture war, staying away from the left or the right. I don't want to say centrist, but folks like that would have seen it.
We control visibility quite a bit, and we control the amplification of our content quite a bit. And normally people do not know how much we do, one Twitter engineer told us. 2 additional Twitter employees confirmed. And it's, when I read shit like this, and, and Robbie was watching, I don't know if he's still on here, but like we've made jokes about this on each other's podcasts about how, like people get shadow banned. And like we would make jokes on our show, like, oh, we talked about that. We're probably shadow banned, and would make like kind of like laugh about it because there was no tangible truth or proof that it happens. But now we have it.
And I think the thing that intrigues me most about this coming out is like, okay, so Twitter, to me, I just look at this as like Twitter is the first to be busted. Like Twitter,
so it's clear. Like, if it's happening here,
Facebook, YouTube, all of them. I mean.
The group that decided whether to limit the reach of certain users was the Strategic Response Team, Global Escalation Team, or SRTGET. It often handled up to 200 cases per day. But there existed a level of beyond official ticketing, beyond the rank and file moderators following the company's policy on paper, that is the Site Integrity Policy Escalation Support, known as SIPPES. This secret group included Head of Legal, Policy and Trust, Vyaja Gaddy, and the Global Head of Trust Safety, Yoel Roth, subsequent CEOs Jack Dorsey and Parag Agrawal, and others. This is where the biggest, most politically sensitive decisions got made. Think high follower account controversial. Another Twitter employee told us for these, there would be no ticket or anything. So if someone, so wait. Is she saying that like the big accounts, there would be no ticket? They wouldn't have anything on paper that they shadow ban and they just did it? Is that what she's saying?
I think that's what she's saying.
One of the accounts that rose to this level of scrutiny was Libs of TikTok, an account that was on the Trends blacklist and was designated as do not take action on user without consulting with SIPPES. Okay, so the strike count thing, I'm assuming that's when they actually shared something that like went against the terms and services. And what's really interesting, if you saw Charlie Kirk's and Dan Bongiorno's, they had 0 strike count. So they were basically sharing stuff that wasn't against the terms and services of Twitter, but they literally shadow banned them anyways.
That shocks me that Dan Bongino didn't have any strikes against him, because I think Dan Bongino is a piece of shit. So I can't believe that he wouldn't have had something that Twitter management at that point in time would have thought.
That one was 7 minutes ago, so that one might be the last one for now.
No, I got a few more here.
I just refreshed. Yeah,
this is going from 17 to 21.
God damn it!
The account which Chaya Raichik began in November of 2020 and now boasts over 1.4 million followers was subjected to 6 suspensions in 2022. Each time Raichik was blocked from posting for as long as a week. I don't know why I'm missing 18.
Oh, so here's 17, 18, and 19.
All right, I just read 17.
Yeah, so Twitter repeatedly informed Raichik that she had been suspended for violating Twitter's policies against hateful conduct. But in the international SIPPES memo from October 2022, after her 7th suspension, the committee acknowledged that LTT was not directly engaged in behavior violative of the hateful conduct policy. See here. The committee's justified her I guess I don't know if we should read that. But it's just site policy recommendation assessment. And it just says that they didn't directly engage in behavior violative of hateful conduct, even though they banned her for it. But then they said that she didn't do it. Or LTT, whatever that is. Libs of TikTok, duh. You're just talking about it. Fuck me. The committee justified her suspensions internally by claiming her posts encouraged online harassment of hospitals and medical providers by insinuating that gender-affirming healthcare is equivalent to child abuse or grooming. Compare this to what happened when Raichik herself was doxxed on November 21st, 2022. A photo of her home with her address was posted in a tweet that garnered more than 10,000 likes. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting. So Twitter swears that they don't put up with doxing, right? That it violates their terms of service. I think I'm right about that. I think
so. Well, maybe if they weren't so focused on blocking this person for just having an opinion that goes against the grain of a certain ideology, they would have been able to worry about the safety of this user.
Well, Corey, it's just having basic principles and morals, right? So let me think of somebody who I really fucking can't stand their ideas and what they do, right? I'll just bring up an example because she's the first person that came to my head. Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a fucking idiot. She says a lot of stupid things. She shouldn't be blocked. She shouldn't be doxxed, right? Like I would cringe from morally deep inside if I found out that Marjorie Taylor Greene was being doxxed all over Twitter. Now, do you think if Marjorie Taylor Greene, at least during this Twitter management that the Twitter files are about, you think if Marjorie Taylor Greene was doxxed on Twitter, how long do you think it would have taken them
to take that off of there? Yeah. Yeah. Cottonmouth just said Twitter got busted for lying about censorship. Typical libtard BS. And that's what we were kind of talking about when we said, like, when this stuff was hidden, that's a conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's not. And I guess that's what I was getting at. When do you think there was some vindication for people on the right who were talking about this? And I would say yes, but I don't think that it was like out of bounds, like legal.
But here's the thing about like I'll bring it back up, right? Like I agree with everything up until the comma and what's after that.
Typical libtard BS. Well,
yeah, but here's why, right? Here's why. Censorship of any kind is bad. It's just that the quote unquote libtard BS is the mainstream portion right now. Like conservatives aren't actually, I shouldn't say conservatives. I should say hardcore conservatives that are just hateful of liberal ideals in general. These are the people that it's not that they want free. It's not that they're arguing for freedom of speech. They're just trying to get liberal censorship removed so that they can impose their own censorship. I mean, the best example is like Truth Social, right?
The best example is Trump trying to negate fucking Section 230.
Well, that like, even just like Trump's own social media platform, like read the terms of service, dude. Like,
no, both sides do.
We're a free speech platform. It's like, no, you're not, because if you shit on Trump, you're violating the terms of service. Well, if I can't shit on Trump on Truth Social, you're not a freedom of speech platform.
Right. And then so Cottonmouth, welcome to the show. But yeah, if you hang around, you'll see real quick that we don't necessarily lean one way or the other when it comes to this kind of shit. Like we think both sides are terrible with this. Like, for example, like right now it's the liberals that definitely have the upper hand, but
because they have control.
In the grand scheme of things, you could go back to McCarthyism, you can go back to Hoover, and it was the right that did it to the left. The whole war on drugs was based on trying to censor and silence the hippies and the blacks. It goes back and forth constantly. It's just right now we're seeing the pendulum swing left. And what mine and Dan's concerns are is instead of letting the pendulum just constantly swing back and forth, how about we just fucking stop it and take it off the chain?
Or at least slow it down a little bit. Like,
it's
a little bit less each time. Yeah, that'd be good.
So and in this instance, typical libtard BS. I'll push back against you, Dan. Yes, it is typical libtard BS, but that doesn't negate the fact that conservatives do the same damn thing when given the chance.
Oh yeah, they would 100%. Yeah, it's not.
And I also agree with this statement.
Except for, you know what, honestly, as more and more of this stuff comes out, like I actually like Jack Dorsey more and more and more. Like it really kind of seems like he was just trying to keep a listing ship afloat. You know what I mean?
Sounds like his biggest fault was just going, fuck this.
Yeah, throwing his hands up.
Sounds like that's what he did. Because at one time,
if somebody like Bari Weiss was gonna interview somebody right now over this stuff, I would love to hear what Jack Dorsey has to say.
Yeah, me too.
Because it appears
what if Elon brings Jack Dorsey back in? That'd be kind of cool, right?
That honestly, from a PR perspective, I think that would be so good. Even from I didn't even think about that. But do you really think Jack Dorsey wants to get involved with this bullshit again?
No, he got out clean. He got out pretty damn clean.
You know how many yachts and how much cash in a fucking briefcase, tax-free, that Elon would have to shove under his bed? Here's just a yacht full of cash. Jack Dorsey, please come back for the from a PR perspective, because I mean, liberals hate Elon, right? At this point,
Right.
and conservatives just hate what Twitter represents, although not so much anymore because Elon took over. I don't know. Nothing's in good faith anymore. Yeah, I think that's the last one so far. We got up to 21
Yeah.
for Barry so far. Yeah.
Yeah, I just refreshed it. Let's see where we're at. This is hers is both were good, but hers is a little juicier.
The only difference is that we're not getting the screenshots of any emails this time around, but we are getting screenshots of
that other stuff that we saw screenshots of, like how they have like just everyone's profile with like all their little markings and stuff on it.
all their little strike counts. And
When Ryshik told Twitter that her address had been disseminated, she says Twitter support responded with this message. We reviewed the reported content and didn't find it to be in violation of the Twitter rules. No action was taken, and the doxing tweet is still up.
I shouldn't be
That's
laughing.
fucking juicy.
Hold on. Is there any more after that? Yeah,
there is.
Hold on. Let me find that one you were at. The doxing tweet is still. Which number was that? 22?
Yeah.
Of course. I'm a little.
So as you're looking for it, 23.
I'm going to see if I can find that tweet. I have to try. I'm going to have to try and find that tweet.
In internal Slack messages, Twitter employees spoke of using technicalities to restrict the visibility of tweets and subjects. Here's Yoel Ross, Twitter then global head of trust and safety, in a direct message to a colleague in 2021. And it says, and of course it's taken forever to fucking load because I have probably 30 tabs open. I'm pulling a Marshall Kozlov right here, Dan. Wow. This is taking a long time.
Okay, hold on. I'm not gonna be able to. I mean, I could probably find it if I really, really search for it, but
I'm just waiting for it to load. I'm back on the StreamYard page.
No, but I don't think it. I don't think Barry says who doxed this woman. So it's going to be hard to find.
Oh man, this Twitter has to be going nuts right now because my tab is unresponsive.
What are you on 23?
Yeah.
Slack messages?
Yeah.
Were you trying to read the Slack message?
Yeah, I tried to pull it up and now this.
Let me see if I can get it. If I can get it up here.
And like as we were talking on the pre-show when this first came out, we were talking and I had it screen shared right here. I was watching the retweets just go like 1,000, 1,100, 1,200, 1,300.
I got you. I'm gonna screen share mine here real quick.
Oh, thank God.
Yoel Roth. A lot. This is the Slack message, right? A lot of times, SI has used technically spam enforcements as a way to solve a problem created by safety under enforcing their policies, which again isn't a problem per se, but it helps us from addressing the root cause of the issue, which is that our safety policies need some attention. Oh man. So yeah, I mean, look, you look at an internal Slack message like that. This is the juicy stuff we wanted. This is basically saying that safety, right? This whatever they call it at Twitter, the safety department had a responsibility. Is essentially what this is saying. At least that's what I'm gathering from it. So
yeah.
Anyway. Oh, there's another one. 6 days later, in a direct message with an employee on the
You don't have your I'm sorry to completely go off on a tangent here, but you don't have your Twitter set up on dark mode?
No, I don't. Should I? Am I supposed to?
Fucking noob.
Am I supposed to?
I don't know. I just have everything that has the option for dark mode. I just have it on dark mode.
6 days later, in a direct message with an employee on the health, misinformation, privacy, and identity research team. Wow, what a name for a fucking department for Twitter. Roth requested more research to support expanding, quote, non-removal policy interventions like disabling engagements and de-amplification slash visibility filtering. And that message said, one of the biggest areas I'd love research support on is non-removal policy interventions like disabling engagements and de-amplification slash visibility filtering. The hypothesis underlying much of what we've implemented is that if exposure to misinformation directly causes harm, we should use remediations that reduce exposure and limiting the spread / variability or virality. I can't fucking read of content is a good way to do that by just reducing prevalence overall. We got Jack on board. Ooh, that's interesting. With implementing this for civic integrity in the near term, but we're going to need to make a more robust case to get this into our repertoire of policy remediations, especially for other policy domains. So I'd love research's point of view on that. There's a lot to unpack there. There's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah, hers is a little juicy.
I don't even think I have a comment on that. Roth wrote the high policy. Okay, we already read that in his thing. 26 is he added, we got Jack on board with implementing for civic integrity. Okay. So I'm assuming that means Jack Dorsey.
Yeah. And so it sounds like he was on board with the idea of a broad scheme of it when it comes to like civil integrity, to where it's like,
I was gonna say, under the guise of civil integrity, which that is.
But it sounds like based on Matt Taibbi's Twitter drop, it sounds like he was in the dark about a lot of this.
Well, I'm just rereading this real quick, limiting this spread /
Mm-hmm.
virality of content.
This is all pretty interesting, man. You know, it's frustrating because it is vindication for people on the right, but they're just gonna botch it. Like we were talking, they're just gonna be like, "Oh, put him in jail," and there's just gonna be this crazy extremist response to where,
right?
Like,
they always turn it into what it is, right? Like, or they always turn it into something it's not, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because they're just behind the 8 ball culturally, as far as like having influence over the culture. But it's like, can you just take the win? Because this is one of
here's what it is, Dan. Here's what it is. Okay,
right.
So they take stuff like this, right, and they run with it so much with their response to the point where their response is laughable. And then the mainstream media and everything can literally just laugh off whatever they're saying, even if it's warranted, or even if there's a nugget of truth that it's based on. And it's kind of like what I was saying last week in regards to pedophilia. They take something that is real and is happening and blow it up to this massive proportion of unconceivability, to where it just gives so much room for people on the other side to just go, look at these crazies. And instead of sharing the one who was like, yeah, that was fucking weird, or wow, Twitter did this, they ignore that, and then they share the person that goes, lock them up. And then everyone runs with the lock them up narrative, and not the narrative that, well, this is really unethical. And they shoot themselves in the foot by making it so outlandish.
Yeah, and then what it'll turn into from like a lawmaker's perspective is like, I can already hear. I don't know who it'll be. It could be any Republican rep or senator that's going to come out and go, we need more regulation on social media, on what social media companies are allowed to do. Which
no, we need less.
Which is the party that wants to sit there and claim that they're the advocates for liberty. It's like, no,
yeah, go look at Truth Social's terms and services. It's literally Twitter is just the opposite.
No, well, what I meant was, like, I could just see like a Jim Jordan or somebody. I'm just naming a congressman here.
Oh God, fucking Jim Jordan.
But it'd be like, we need to regulate these social media platforms and what they're allowed to do and what they're allowed to censor. So you're trying to censor censorship is essentially what you're trying to do. It always turns into this snowball effect of just over fucking reaction. It's like, Twitter, you're busted. Like, you and I see that. Twitter, you're busted.
You busted.
You know what you did? You lost credibility. Now, Elon Musk owns Twitter now, so it's like,
so who's the next right-wing billionaire to buy Facebook?
Twitter didn't really lose much. What do you mean? Mark Zuckerberg is he's a phony liberal billionaire, but he's like, let's be honest. Let's be honest about what it really is.
Right. Now I want to see their inner workings. I want to see YouTube's inner workings, because YouTube went completely off the rails when it came to COVID.
Can I ask a stupid question?
Ask away, Dan.
I'm hoping you know the answer to, and I know some of our internet sleuth listeners will know. I don't know how I don't know this, probably because I haven't cared enough to look into it. Who the fuck is Jeff Tiedrick? This guy that you see all over Twitter. He's got like 40 bazillion followers, and it's all just anti-Trump shit. Because he decided to reply.
And you're talking about that guy with the gray hair, right?
He's never been verified. And he's like super like he decided to reply to Bari Weiss, my eyes glaze over. It's like you probably didn't read any of it. I don't know who this guy is. Like I feel like an idiot because I feel like I should. Like
this is funny though. Everyone's like, well, thank God new ownership will change all the hang on, what's this? And it's Elon Musk. New Twitter policy is freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. Negative hate tweets will be maxed and boosted and demonetized, so no ads or other revenue to Twitter. They're talking about how Elon. What's really funny though is even though Elon is basically saying he might kind of do the same thing, at least he's being open about it first off, versus them being silent about it. So that's the first big difference. Is he's at least he's telling people like, yeah, you come on here and say you hate Jews a bunch. People aren't really going to see that tweet. But then this person, I bet you also still thinks Elon is a crazy right-wing nut, even though he's saying he's going to do the same thing the left wing did. Right? Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
No, it does. It does because it speaks to what I said about 10 minutes ago, which is that it's not that, conservatives are for free speech and anti-censorship. They just want their type of censorship. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would like to think that Elon Musk and his team's idea of what constitutes hate speech is a little different than what it was before. Because that's the thing is like, that's why I hate the term hate speech, because it's so subjective. Anything could be hate speech. I'd call you an idiot right here on this show, Corey, and get demonetized because I said something hateful to you.
Right.
I hate speech to you.
And then I could say, well, fuck you, and I'd be fine.
I'm going to kill you, Corey Walsh. Ooh, better take him off.
Great. Well, there goes our views. They just dropped down to 0.
Shadow banned. Understand a joke. I was just kidding. Do I have to give the disclaimer? Like, I'm not really going to kill Corey Walsh.
If I'm suicided, you're fucked. You got motive. I don't know. I heard some guy named Dan on a podcast with him. The last thing he said was,
you made Hillary
there's
Clinton.
more to come on this story, which was reported by Abigail Schreier, Shellen Bergmund, Nellie Bowles, Isaac Grafstein, and the team of the Free Press. Keep up with the unfolding story here at our brand new website, thefp.com. Oh, nice. She dropped in the Free Press a new website. The authors have broad and expanding access to Twitter's files. The only condition we agreed to was that the material would first be published on Twitter. Okay, so she verified it. She said it right there. Like, so there's going to be more. It just had to be put on Twitter first.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, it was part of Elon's deal. So I mean, that's it. That's it for part 2. Bari Weiss basically
part 2.
Showing screenshots of, I mean, the big takeaway from Bari Weiss's Twitter files part 2 is showing the screenshots of what looks like the home hub for some sort of Twitter executive, showing what all the various flags were on certain accounts, which they said wasn't happening.
Yeah.
De facto shadow banning. Dude, I don't even know if we have time for anything else.
I was just going to say we're going to have to talk about the Supreme Court cases next week. Most of them aren't going to be dropped until June anyways, so it's not super time sensitive.
It's so funny because you and I, when we had our show meeting last night, we
said, God, I hope she fucking drops it before. Yeah. This was all off the cuff, boys. This dropped 5 minutes before we went on the air.
When the hell is Bari Weiss going to release Twitter files part 2? I hope it's before we do the show. And I refresh her page literally 5 minutes before we go on air and go,
I saw Dan's desk go on a tilt up because he got an erection the size of the Empire State Building.
No, I think you are overselling the size of my schwanz, Corey. You are absolutely overselling it.
I'm sorry, bud.
For anybody who might appreciate that. Anyway.
Guess we'll use a banana for scale.
Yeah, I mean, fuck. I guess we can cut it here. We'll talk. Yeah, no, more like a plantain,
A lagoon.
or a cashew.
It's really
honestly,
just an oversized clitoris.
we can talk about this a little bit more, Corey. But
What, your oversized clitoris?
yeah,
And we'll talk more about that next week.
Libservative.
Libservative podcast.
What I was going to say
Sorry.
before you so ridiculously interrupted me was we talk about this possibly releasing a second show this weekend if you're available.
You know what? Saturday I'm going up to Frankenmuth. I'm bringing the fam up there to go to Bronner's.
So that's a maybe.
Maybe Sunday morning I have CJ's Christmas concert.
You're
do something Sunday afternoon or something.
Your Trump supporting son?
My Trump supporting son, who's an anti-masker, anti-vaccine. What was the other things that we said?
I don't know, but he's basically QAnon. You got a QAnon kid. Yeah. Anyway, just a little teaser. We may do another show because we literally were only able to cover one topic tonight, and we had a lot of shit to talk about. So
yeah,
Corey,
no, that was interesting.
We might drop a second one this week, so stay tuned. And meanwhile, tell the people where they can find us.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media podcast platforms. Our website is libservativeshow.com. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. You can find our transcripts at libservativepodcast.wordpress.com. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. Subscribe today. I don't know why every time I start to read that, I want to read it like I'm doing the weather, but it just calls to me like that, I guess.
I hear you. Sorry, I was just fixing some shit on the description. Anyway,
yeah, just erasing all of the description to just Twitter,
erasing the whole thing. He's been Corey Walsh,
and he's been Dan Griffin.
This has been Libservative, and we're just two intellectual idiots fostering political and cultural literacy. And until next time, we are out of here.
Peace. It always still says live for me, and I feel like we're not live.
We still live? Might be.
It says live. It says we're live. We got a viewer. Someone's still hanging out.